Thank you for joining us today for our Saving Energy in Your Community Business webinar, where we'll take a practical look at how to reduce your energy use and become more energy efficient, hopefully reducing your energy bills and also lessen the impact on the environment. My name's Sarah, and I am a membership and training manager here at Plunkett Foundation. And today's event is part of our training hub, which is a series of webinars and networking events for community businesses across the UK. And I'm delighted today to welcome our guests. We've got Mike Pickering here, who is Head of Sustainability for the Midcounties Co-op. And we've also got Phil Warren joining us here from ETS as well. They're going to give a presentation for about 40 minutes. And then after that, we'll have plenty of time for questions. If you could post your questions, please, into the chat at the bottom of the screen. It should be at the bottom. And then at the end, I'll pose those for you to Mike and Phil. And then if you'd like to keep your cameras on, you're more than welcome. It's always nice to see your faces rather than talking to a blank wall of screens. But if you'd rather stay incognito, then you're more than welcome. So without further ado, I shall hand you over to Mike. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Sarah. So thanks a lot for inviting me along to do this. First thing I'm going to do is run through a bit of a case study of what the Midcounties Cooperative are doing from an energy saving point of view, particularly within our food stores and our convenience stores. And once I've done that, I'll then hand over to Phil, who's going to do a broader energy saving overview from an ETS point of view. So the first part is very much on what we're doing at Midcounties, and then I'll hand over to Phil. So Sarah, if you wouldn't mind moving on for me, that'd be great on the slides. Thank you. And I think from an agenda point of view, we've already covered that off, so I'll go straight into the Midcounties Co-op. So most of you might be familiar with who Midcounties Co-op are. But just in case you're not, I'll give a really brief overview of who we are and what we do. So as you can see in the title, we're a cooperative, which therefore means we're owned by our members. We've got over 600,000 members who all have an equal say in how our business is run. And it's really important for us that they're engaged in everything we do as much as possible. We've got a diverse range of businesses. Most people know about our food business, but we also have travel, childcare, utilities and post offices as well alongside that. The main focus of this presentation is certainly going to be from a food retail angle and how we're really tackling energy saving in food, but just a bit of background there are other obviously trading groups that we operate in. An important thing for us from a number of things, but actually energy saving related as well, is our ability to be able to work with other co-ops across the country and across the world when it comes to sharing best practice. And one thing we're able to do at the moment is actually do a lot of best practice sharing around energy saving. And I'll come on to a bit more about how we do that in a moment. But that co-op network really helps us with that. And I'll talk about some of the practical tips we've managed to gain through that and hopefully be able to share that with everyone on the call as well. And just as an idea of scale, we've got currently 225 food stores within our estate. So what we're going to go through now is hopefully some practical tips of what we've been able to identify and establish and embed when it comes to energy saving within our food stores. So thank you, Sarah. On to the next slide, please. Thank you. Just as a bit of background, as I think everyone will be aware, and probably one of the main reasons perhaps you're on the call, is there's been a significant rise in energy costs, and that obviously has affected a number of businesses, but certainly in food retail, being quite an energy intensive business, that's affected many food retail businesses. Now, for us as a business, obviously we've got 225 food stores, as I mentioned. This actually has had an unbudgeted risk to us of £6 million on our overall energy bill. So essentially what that means to us is we've gone from a figure that's gone up by £6 million to that new figure, £6 million more than what it would have been before the prices went up. So significant for us. Now, the biggest thing that we can certainly, a lever we can pull to try and bring that down as much as possible, is energy efficiency and reducing energy consumption. So that is certainly something I've been involved with a number of people in our business now for the last 6 months to a year. I've been involved in it for longer than that, but the real focus has been since those prices obviously went up to really try and accelerate some of this activity. Now, from a typical convenience stores of ours, that's a typical annual increase in costs of £30,000 to £40,000 on energy bill, weekly increase from 600 to 800. So just as a scale of what that kind of looks like from some of our stores' point of view, from a medium-sized to small convenience store across our estate. So if you'd like to move on, thanks, Sarah, to the next slide. So what we did as a business is we quickly pulled together an energy saving plan and energy saving strategy. Now, obviously, we've got the advantage of being a big business to be able to get a number of people together to try and come up with solutions for this. So we've got obviously food retail expertise, we've then got property expertise, financial expertise. So very fortunate we're able to pull those people together and form what we have as a mini steering group. But hopefully what I'm going to be able to do now is share some of those things that have come out of those discussions and ideas with everybody on the call. 4 main areas that we identified that we feel we can make a difference in when it comes to energy consumption, energy efficiency, is we wanted to get a better understanding of actually what's using energy across our stores. So really understand what the big energy users, what are some of those more unknown things that are ticking along using energy, maybe things we don't need that we use. So that was a big part of that first strand, and I'll come on to that in a moment. The second strand there, we wanted to get better awareness out to colleagues of what they could just do in their day-to-day lives in the food stores to save energy. What could they make a difference and affect themselves quite easily within what they do? Then the probably more complex area is identifying where we can invest our money in energy saving capital projects, property projects. So that's obviously a bigger opportunity. Not everybody can do this, but this is something that we've then been able to do, and I'll come on to what we've done in that particular section as well. And the final strand that's been really important for us is the sharing of best practice amongst businesses, amongst co-ops, amongst colleagues, and I'll talk a bit about, again, some of the practical things that have come out of those discussions that we've been able to establish as well. Okay, thank you. So I'd like to move on to the next slide. I'll go on to the first strand of that and provide some practical examples of what we've done within our food stores to make a difference. So the first thing that we did was really do our best to identify everything that was going on in our food stores from an energy usage point of view, and we did an energy usage inventory. So we tried to identify exactly what we've got in our stores, how many fridges, how many lights, how many heaters, what type of air conditioning is it, what type of units are they, as much knowledge as we could get as possible to enable us to then hopefully make some decisions and have some actions we could take to reduce energy and where we could do that. We also carried out a number of site visits to identify some of those energy saving opportunities to pull that information together. We also started putting together regular energy usage reporting for our stores, and what we focus on is essentially how much a store has reduced energy by compared to the previous year on a like for like. So we try and make it as simple as possible and have it energy usage versus the previous year, so sites can see if they're reducing it or if it's going up, so they can have good visibility of the progress that they're making. One thing we have found really useful is what's called day-night reporting, and it means you get a report that shows how much usage your store is using at night time compared to how much it's using in the daytime. And the reason we do that is because it shows us if everything's being switched off as it should be when we close the business in the evening, when we close the store in the evening. And we have a target that we've been advised is a good target to have for a store, is it should ideally, if possible, depending on a few factors, be reduced it by at least 50% at night time. So that's what we aim to do, and I'll come on to what we do to try and achieve that. But that does help us with the behaviours of our colleagues and try and sort of motivate as well. So some examples of things that we've identified as a result of all this inventory stuff that's really helped us. Backup chiller rooms that we have in a number of our sites and stores. So obviously the backup cold rooms, fridge and freezer areas where produce can go in that comes out to then obviously go back out to the store itself. The picture on the right-hand side shows this actually. They should all have some sort of plastic airstrip curtains on them. And we identified when we did our survey that 33 of our stores for some reason no longer had these plastic airstrip curtains. And I'm told within food that in the food industry that's not uncommon, because for some reason they often get removed for whatever reason and then don't get replaced. But every time there isn't one on there, I'm told that it's a 30%. So you save 30% of the energy on those particular chiller units if they've got those plastic chillers in place. So we identified a number of those that didn't have them. So a quick job that we then implemented was getting those plastic air strips in place on those backup chillers. And straight away that made a difference. We also started identifying some kit that was just no longer needed or used in the stores. And these are things like we had some old refrigeration units weren't being used, but they were still plugged in. Some old heaters that weren't being used, but were still plugged in. So there were small things that we found that don't need to be in the store anymore, and we could just unplug and take them out. No work, no capital outlay for that, just things that are in there that have just always been there that are no longer needed for whatever reason. On our, what we call our BWS beers, wines and spirits chillers, we also used to, as a rule of thumb, pretty much have them on all the time, set to a certain temperature. So we identified, working with experts, and ETS helped us with this and other people, to identify that we were actually able to increase the temperature of those beers, wines and chillers by 1 degree above what it is at the moment. And just by increasing the temperature by 1 degree, obviously it saves us energy because it's slightly warmer, but it's still keeping it cool enough for those beers, wines and spirits to still be at the temperature level they need to be for us to sell and people to obviously enjoy them. So that was still okay. Also, we were able to identify that they only really need to be switched on from midday to 9 p.m. They don't need to be on all morning. And they also don't need to be on right the way through till close, because obviously a lot of our stores close at 11 o'clock because they would still stay cool enough to be able to, again, have those at the right temperature they need to be. So that has made a difference to us. We recognised that a number of our automatic front doors don't always work properly. So what often happens in that situation is they're left open, and obviously you've got the constant heat coming in and out. So we got those fixed as soon as possible within that. We also identified some other sort of quite small things, but quite strange scenarios where we knew we were using energy. So one example for us, and many of you will perhaps have been familiar with this, that went shopping in bigger stores during lockdown and during COVID, we implemented the traffic light system, which a lot of people would have seen during that period of time. We had a green, amber, red to enable people to go in and out the stores during that time to make sure they didn't get too full. Obviously, that was no longer needed after the lockdown periods. We still had those actually plugged in, all on green, but essentially they were still using energy. So again, very straightforward for us, just took them down, unplugged them and took them out of play. And I think it was only really by looking at this bit of detail and all the time trying to find things that we were able to find these things out and just simply unplug them. Again, no capital outlay on that, just to get them switched off and taken away. All of this activity also enabled us to identify some of the bigger energy saving opportunities that also involve capital investment. And I'll come on to that on a future slide in a couple of slides time. So thank you, Sarah. If you move on to the next one, that'd be great. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, on this one here. So this is the colleague awareness side of things. So what we wanted to do here was try and give top tips to people that work in food stores that will just help them in their day-to-day to save energy. That was one of the big things we wanted to do here on this particular thing. So we now provide currently regular energy saving top tips and information. I'll come on to some of those in a second of what they are. We run competitions across our stores to try and motivate who can save energy the most and give some prizes at the end of each month or each quarter and that type of thing. But really importantly for us, we've also been able to implement and keep adding to this as well, our energy saving site shutdown procedure. So basically at the end of the day when a store is closed, it really helps colleagues just having a quite simple checklist of all the things that should be switched off, safely switched off for a colleague to do so as well, to do that at the end of the day. And that obviously we can then look at our day-night reports to see if that's making a difference, but that really helps as well. Some of the examples, we give regular advice to colleagues just to remind them on some of the parameters to help with that energy saving. So we know that colleagues in a lot of our stores can control our air conditioning. So we always give that advice to make sure it stays between 20 and 22. Obviously, that's really important to keep that range as the most efficient that we can. Again, old style practice, probably across a lot of stores, is probably easier for colleagues to an extent, is if you have a bakery oven, as you're switching everything on, put the bakery oven on, get on with your other jobs. Bakery oven then will be nice and warm for you to use when it comes to actually needing to use it, and then you go and use it. We realised that a lot of the bakery ovens were going on way before they needed to. So we worked with colleagues to make sure that they were only on for the optimum time. So actually only to be switched on when needed. obviously a short period for them to warm up, but then they can be used and then switched off straight away. Whereas before they were being switched on, left, other jobs being done, and then going back to it. Admittedly, it takes some changes in practices for colleagues and they have to perhaps adjust a few things, but significant energy savings will be realised and are being realised by obviously changing and tightening up that type of thing. Another practice, it's very tempting to obviously get as much out on the shelves as possible when it comes to food and food items. Also, it's very tempting to put loads of marketing material and shelf edge labels up around to make things look really good, and then that's obviously great, but it's really important to not overfill those chiller shelves when it comes to chillers, refrigeration, because it interrupts the air curtain, it stops refrigeration working efficiently. So another piece of work we do with our colleagues is, again, just really trying to resist that temptation of really stocking them up so high that the flow doesn't happen enough. And we really try to do that to save some energy where required. Turning off heating when not required, I know it's quite an obvious one, but one example we've got of this one is, and this quite recently happened, you'll probably remember it from a temperature point of view, and it's still happening now. Well, obviously, we had a really cold patch where it's freezing cold. And then we had suddenly a really mild week in January when it went from freezing to mild. And what we did with our colleagues in that particular period, obviously the heating in the stores was really needed during that cold spell. But then what would have happened during that hot week is some stores would have done probably a really good job of remembering that heating wasn't necessarily needed anymore, but some of the other stores would naturally just have their heating still whacked up really high because of that cold period. So we work really hard to try and remind and work with our colleagues to remind them that actually this is a milder period of time now. All that heating doesn't need to be on, and it's just a short reminder that people tend to embrace quite well when it comes to that sort of thing. We've also got things like night blinds on refrigeration cases, so reminding colleagues to fit them to pull them down where they're in place. And back to the plastic air curtains on the backup chillers. Again, a real good one for this is, and I can understand my colleagues do it because it makes it easier for them to do it. Tuck all the plastic back to one side, because it means you can take things in and out easier to an extent, but obviously as soon as they're tucked back to one side, all of those energy efficiencies start going. So it's a real reminder to try and remind colleagues of that, just to walk through the strips and take the things in and out rather than keep tucking them back, because of those energy efficiencies that you can really make. Now, the other thing that we did as well, and the two images on the right-hand side, is we got our colleagues to do some video footage of them doing some of these things. So, doing it and talking through the bakery oven, putting the blinds down, the air curtains, all that sort of stuff. And that really helped. So we sent that out to our colleagues, and it made it more of a practical way of people, rather than having a sign up, actually seeing what it's like in a video format as a bit of an overview as well. Overall, we believe from our energy usage reporting that this actually awareness side of things is saving us around 1 million kilowatt hours a year. That's around £300,000 based on the current, obviously, energy costs that are in place at the moment. So for us, this is definitely making a difference in this particular area. Thanks, Sarah. If you will move on to the next one, that'd be great. So the next slide is around our capital. Actually, no, this one first. Sorry, I will touch on this one. So this is an example, albeit a lot of information on here for a slide, but this is just an example of the way we try and get some of our messages across to colleagues working in stores. So this is almost a diagram that shows everything that a colleague could be doing in a day to save energy. It's just a reminder of different things: air conditioning, lighting. Talked about the beers, wines and spirits, back doors closed, lights off, kettle, all sorts of things. We try and remind colleagues through a visual format here. And the site shutdown that I talked about earlier reflects this type of thing. So it's more of a checklist to help a colleague. And this is a reminder, quite a visual format to have that in. So thanks, Sarah. That's just what that would look like from an awareness point of view. So the next slide is around the capital investment side of things. So appreciate that this is not always possible for everybody to be able to do, but what we were able to do, working with the likes of ETS, and you'll hear from Phil in a moment from their point of view, what really helped us working with ETS, and also from our contractors and other people that we partners with as well, is we were able to identify what would the biggest energy savings be, and where, if we've got money to invest, where are we going to invest it? And as I'm sure you'd all imagine, the big things that we identified were lighting, heating, cooling, refrigeration, big things for us from a food retail point of view. Now, we identified that our biggest opportunity in the short term was certainly lighting and refrigeration, and we have agreed over the last year an investment of £5 million in those things to really improve our energy efficiency across, as I say, those stores that I talked about earlier. That's included rollout of low energy lighting in 110 stores and new energy efficient refrigeration in 26 stores as well. And that is making a real big difference for us. 30% reduction in energy usage across the stores that we've done that in. And overall, we're saving 2.5 million kilowatt hours. And again, that's equivalent to £700,000 across those stores that we're doing those in. So behaviour change and the actual investment in energy efficiency starting to make a difference and really helping with us. The things we're looking at doing moving forwards is to see what we can automate a little bit more than we do at the moment. So where we can perhaps automate things like heating and cooling, being able to do that from a central location, having them on a better timer system to help colleagues obviously in stores to not have to remember to do everything, and we can automate some of it ourselves. That will be the next step for us when it comes to this investment on an energy efficiency capital point of view. Thank you. And I think it just moves me on to the last slide of my particular bit. I mentioned before the sharing best practice element, really important for us when it comes to being a co-op, but any business at the moment probably would benefit to be able to share things with other people. We are part of a retail co-op society best practice sharing group. So basically all the co-op retail societies meet on a regular basis to share best practice when it comes to sustainability, but particularly focused on energy efficiency over the last 6 months. And actually the diagram I showed you earlier of all those different actions that colleagues can take in a store, that's pretty much been pulled together by sharing all of that best practice with others. So we'll continue to grow that actually as we keep sharing best practice amongst ourselves, because usually there's always a new idea that comes up every so often, at least every quarter, that we think, great, we'll put that onto our list and we share ours with other people as well. So that's really helped us building that and identifying that. And I think the important thing for us as well is it also has helped us identify areas where we want to invest in when it comes to energy efficiency as well, because we were able to speak to other businesses, other co-op societies to understand, has this project worked well for you? What are the pros, what are the cons with it? And also with the likes of, and again, I mentioned ETS, but having someone like ETS on board as well, you can get the real technical expertise to understand what difference you can make to your business from energy efficiency as well. So that's it for me, Sarah. I think that was my last slide. So I will hand over to Phil for the next part. No, I've got my final reveal, haven't I? Yeah, this is sounds like a show-off slide. This does. Sorry, I've really missed this one. So overall, it shows that it's making a difference for us. We've reduced energy usage by 8% this year across like-for-like sites. Significant saving in kilowatt hours, but also from a carbon emissions point of view, it's saving a significant amount for us. So we've actually got a target as a business to halve our greenhouse gas emissions over the next 5 years. And we're well on the way to achieving that. And one of the biggest ways of us achieving that is certainly energy efficiency and energy saving. So obviously the big conversation at the moment is really being driven a lot by the energy costs. And that's really important. That's why we're trying to drive down energy. But the knock-on effect that has on the carbon emissions and greenhouse gas emissions is really significant for us and helping us along that pledge. Okay, thank you. I'll hand over to Phil. Thanks.
Thank you, Mike. And thank you very much for inviting us into the room. It's great to be here, and hopefully we can give you some practical tips on how you can save energy. We're known in the industry as ETS, but our Energy and Technical Services is our full name. What I'm going to go through today is take you through a little bit of market conditions, what's going on, and then basically put into practice the things that Mike has and how we go through that. So if we can move on, Sarah, please. Right, just to show you the credentials, back up one. Just show the credentials of the why we are able to work with great clients like Midcounties. We work with a number of household retailers across the board. The Circle K you'll see there is like the Budgeons of Europe that are heavily in Scandinavian countries. So we're quite aware of the challenges that you face as retailers And we've got Irish distillers on there, and those of you that are small pubs, we've got some information about work we've done with the Vintners Association in Ireland. So if we move on, I'll talk a little bit about the market conditions and what we've all experienced. And whilst, again, my life is involved with a lot of squiggly lines on charts. And what I'll make the sense of that is the peak at the red peak that you can see there was around the September, October time when things were really going through the roof. And now you can see as it tails off towards what is now the end of this month, that everything has started to calm down and go down a little bit. However, when whatever normal looks like again, it is going to be higher than where it was. And I'll read to you the blurb that came out with our latest analysis on this. So gas and power prices have settled over the past week and are only being buffeted now by short-term weather conditions and supply disruptions. So in general, the increased demand during the recent cold spell has been met comfortably by the supply, mostly from storage and LNG. LNG, for those that don't know, is liquefied natural gas, which is basically gas that's chilled to, I think it's minus 260 degrees. So it's a liquid form. So that meant we avoided anything like the jump in prices that we experienced previously. And during the cold snap in December, we didn't take too much of a hit. Prices have been prevented from falling further due to unplanned outages in the North Sea, disrupting output, while wind speeds are also down. So day-ahead prices for trading now remain remarkably consistent. So that's pretty good. Milder and windier weather are due, and while these forecasts are adjusted, there isn't another cold snap forecast, raising hopes of getting through the rest of the winter without a major drawdown from gas storage. European storage levels are currently on par with 2020 levels and have been tracking in line with those even during the recent cold snap. So given where we've been, the market is in a lot better place, still very volatile, but we're all paying more for it. We're all feeling it. So what is the support that is available? If we can roll on, Sarah, please. The energy bill discount scheme is coming in shortly, and they're coming in April 23 through to March 24. This will take over from the energy bill relief scheme, which you should have been benefiting from now. If you haven't been, or you need to know about it, as Martin Lewis would say, please check with your providers. Because these things are in place. So the examples of what the new energy bill discount scheme will do is for a small shop, a typical small retail store that uses 2 megawatt of gas and 1 megawatt of electricity. Now a megawatt is only 1,000 kilowatts, so it's not as large as you would think. Under the student scheme would save £403 for that year. And similarly for a typical pub, which uses 16 megawatts or 4 megawatts of electricity each month, under this new scheme, it could receive 2,300 or but. So these things are in place. It's a bit of a support. It's not a lifeline. What has to happen is that you've got to reduce your consumption as much as you possibly can in your facility. Next slide, please, Sarah. So for me, this is always in energy management and through life, a good starting point. Do whatever you can with what you have from where you are. Don't overthink this. What needs to happen is a set of procedures and rules that you can easily set in place to support you and your teams working in your stores. So if we move on to the next one, Sarah. So this is basically what it is. I will talk you through these 5 steps very shortly. So policy and planning, data, optimization, upgrades, and then review and refine. And Mike has covered some of that off with the work that he's been doing at Midcounties. It might sound like fancy words when you're talking about policy and planning, but it can be made very simply. Yes, please, Sarah. So policy and planning, write down what you want to achieve. So to do that, you have to take an objective view of the equipment that you're operating now and write down the resources you have to achieve the goals that you want. And I put there people, money, and knowledge. People will make or break an energy management scheme. because at the end of the day, it's people that leave things running when they shouldn't be. Mike's talked about a little bit about automation, because you automate as much as you can, and then it's down to people. Knowledge. What do you and your people know about the equipment that's operating in your facilities? And then, unlikely, but do you have money for capital expenditure? So part of the process is understanding the operation of the energy using equipment and its load. So for refrigeration cabinets, it's great if you can actually look at the ticket plate on the side and actually look at its load, so you can calculate what consumption that will be using over a 24 period, because all the energy information is usually written somewhere on the cabinets or on most pieces of energy using equipment. Once you understand its load, you can then see how the size of the prize that you're going after, because there's no point at looking after a GLS light bulb over your point of sale point when you've got air conditioning equipment that's running wild. So that's part of the writing down of the procedure, because once you start to write it down, it starts to make sense and follows a flow. Plan the activity for each piece of equipment and then keep it in that plan. So if you have various bits of kit that have to have warm-up times, write down what it's going to do. We had, Mike touched on bakeries just now, and another national retailer. The bakers used to come at 4 o'clock in the morning. They used to turn their ovens on as soon as they come in. Then they go up to the restroom, put their whites on, have a cup of coffee, read the paper, and then come back down sort of 3/4 an hour later. They didn't do their first bake till about 5:30. So from 4 till 5:30, their ovens were on. Once that was explained as a behavior, it was able to be eliminated and brought into appropriate timeframes. Similarly, night staff used to come in and put pizzas in the ovens just to cook up for their evening meal. Again, when you see that spike in the consumption, you know what's going on, you can work it out. Understand where you're starting from. Energy consumption benchmark. Hopefully, all of you have got recorded what you have used over the last period of time. If you record monthly what you use, you will see seasonal changes, obviously with the weather, customer footfall. But you need that benchmark that you can overlay for 1, 2, or 3 years backwards to understand what you're going to do moving forwards. You can also overlay what new equipment you might have had or what's happened in the facility during that period. Because it's very important to record those, because it might put some anomalies within the information you're looking at. So when you start from a firm baseline, you know what you're able to attack. And again, Mike has spoken about your day profiles and your night profiles, but there are also shoulder profiles on that, early in the mornings and later in the afternoons and evening when footfall's down. What can you do about those shoulders? How do you then reduce the operation equipment still in line with what your customers might need, still in line with food safety? However, you're able to reduce, and will it be noticed? Once you start writing that down, all the gaps in the operational activity and the resolutions will start to come out. And it might not come out in the first iteration. You might have to go and think about it again. If you're operating kitchens in some of the pubs that are on the call, what are the warm-up and close-down procedures within the kitchens and between meals when things switched off, switched on? How is that managed? Because it all has to be managed. It's not just for convenience of the chef, because we're in this crisis at the moment. So you've got to be able to analyze all of it. But you've also got to measure the results. If you don't have that firm baseline and you make an intervention and do something, you're not able to measure what the actual result of that action was. Because this is what you want to be sharing with your teams, is the results. Because the more you make a result, so somebody does something, then you share that result with them, they're enthused to hopefully do more. Next slide, please, Sarah. So when I talk about data, this is the sort of data that my teams and I will be looking at. And we get quite geeky over this. And we would look at this straight away and look at all those squiggly lines on the chart. And I can see in the middle, I think it's somewhere in the dates, somewhere like the 8th to the 10th of September there. You'll see that red line going from, rather than going up, 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 and then dropping down to a very low point, stays fairly high for that period. So we will then say something has been left on, something's happened here. There's equipment that is not working accurately, something's been left on. What is it? And we would then examine that data, because we would know the loads that are running on the refrigeration, the heating and ventilation, the air conditioning, start to work out what it is. Once we've worked out what it might be, we can then send an appropriate engineer to go and have a look and fix it. In that case, it was a refrigeration that has gone a little bit out of kilter, but it only happened for a short period of time. If that wasn't being monitored, that could have gone on for the whole of that month and even into the next month till somebody went and looked at it. So when you start monitoring your information regularly, however it comes in, you're able to spot these anomalies. So this is, for us, what we get. I appreciate that you probably won't get this level of granularity with the information that you will be receiving. If we move on, Sarah, to help out with that, here is a single set of data from a main meter. Now, hopefully, most of you would be on half-hourly metered supplies, and you can get this information. If you're not, it's the end of the world. It's not the end of the world. You can still do plot consumption on a monthly basis. But what we can see here is that there was a 25% increase in the baseline consumption overnight. And our job is, 1, to spot it, 2, to find out why, and 3, to rectify it. Now, if you don't have all these tools at your hand, at your fingertips, you can purchase various metering equipment that's out in the marketplace. Now, the meter that's displayed there, I think, is about 80 quid from an electrical supply shop. But you would need an electrician to fit it, because what happens is, for the circuits that you want monitored, electrical circuit within your facility, he has to, that little black bit is, he has to clip it around a cable basically, and he'll clip it around the cable, and then you are able to monitor that circuit. And if you've got your refrigeration equipment off of that circuit, or air conditioning, it will then tell you what's going on with that equipment 24 hours, 7 days a week, up to down to a minute granularity. You can set it up if you want it really granular, or if you want it over a longer period of time. It's how you want it. And then you can actually see, when you've locked up and gone home, what actually happens in the site. And it gives a great insight into what's going on. And for that sort of money, it's a good investment, because it will pay back very, very quickly. I can't stress enough how important it is to get a view of data and the operation of what's going on, because that will drive your decisions as you move forward. Next one, please, Sarah. So the third part of that, so we've written down our plan, step 1. We've then engaged with our team about what we can do. We've now looked at the data and seen and set our baseline, and now we're into the optimization. So today, start today, go around and do a site walk. Check your thermostats and your time clocks on your heat and vent. Are you able to create what we would call a dead band? What a dead band means is that, does that piece of equipment need to be operating at its full capacity for the full period that you're trading? For instance, in a lot of commercial real estate offices, we will keep the heating off until a certain time, until we see that it's needed, because people are coming in from the outside, taking their coats off, and that they generally warm the place up anyway. So we won't bring the heating on until we realize it's needed, and then you can bring it on, warm the place up. Similarly, when people start, we would turn the heating off maybe at 3, 4 o'clock, if it's open till 6, because we're creating that dead band, and then creating the shoulders that we can actually then creep everything back that doesn't affect the operation of the facility. Because people going home, they don't notice it's getting colder. They're going to put their coat on in a minute and go home. So we're actually just tailoring it off through the day. And then depending on the overnight temperatures, it gets more complicated with thermostats and time clocks and control, because then you can calculate what the outside temperature is, what the inside temperature is, and what time you need to put the heating on first thing in the morning if it's going to be a really cold snap. So it gets complicated, but it doesn't need to, because a lot of the equipment that you will have this facility within it. It's just unlocking it and getting your service engineers to understand what it is that you need from it. Again, pre-opening, post-closing, lighting and equipment. What are the checks that you're going to do? What are the checks and balances that you will have to ensure that that piece of equipment is off? So-and-so is going home. We don't need that part of the store. Do we have an LED down there? Do we have A motion sensor, is that going to switch the heating off? How are we going to operate it? What are we going to do? Kitchens and gas burners left on, it's a biggie. We see it, we've seen it working with the vintners. Equipment's left on, waiting for the next customer, and it can be left on for too long. Lighting TV switched on before open closing. We work with a very large international electronic goods sales organization. And what they used to do is they walk in the morning, they basically flip the switches, or the TVs on the back screen would come on, everything was on. When you calculated what that cost was to them, they then phased it, that they didn't turn them on until 2 minutes before trading, so that the customers coming in saw them, but it wasn't needed till that point. Refrigeration set points and stocking levels. If you've got a number of fridge with low stocking levels, can you turn one off and consolidate everything into one fridge, obviously keeping in with the food safety and hygienes that I understand that you have to do. But can you do that? Is it worth looking at it? What can you take out? What can you decommission? Defrost timers. A lot of equipment for the frozen storage has defrost timers that it will defrost on average. It's 6 times a day. There's a defrost set. You can actually look at that equipment and work out what defrost is needed. And what happens on defrost is the refrigeration element stops. Electric heaters come on within the unit to do the defrost, and then the electric heaters go off again and the refrigeration comes back on. If you reduce the amount of defrost that you need, you're reducing the amount of electrical energy you need for the timers, for the defrost, and you're reducing the amount of refrigeration duty you need to bring the equipment back to set point temperature. So it's always very good to have a look at that. Cellar set points and temperatures. There's a myriad of cellars and the way that cellars are operated for beer temperatures. And I'll go on into in a little bit what a degree change can make. And I'm aware that there are proprietary control systems that you can buy for whole of cellar control. But before you do that, I would urge that you check that all of the equipment that you would then be covering with a total control facility is operating as optimally as it can before you bring in another control system. Doors left open, it's a biggie. People don't realize it, that actually closing a door can save an awful lot of energy loss through the heat that you have generated within the facility. And it's a case of you might want to put closers on the door if you've got a place that the doors are left open regularly, and how you're going to manage that situation. And somebody's got to be responsible for it. If the customers are leaving it open, that you need a member of staff to go and shut that door all the time. Outside lighting, does it go off when you've all gone home? Does it stay on? Is the PIR still working okay? Is it there for security? Is it there for safety? So it's the questions you need to ask. Of course, building fabric airtightness. Where's the cold air coming in? What drafts do you need to exclude? How would you do that? Do you need to go to secondary glazing, which in some of the older properties is actually a very effective way of enabling airtightness? What's the tightness of the doors, the drafts? I recently went around and put new draft excluders all around my mother's doors at her house. Made a massive difference. So you've got to look at where the drafts are coming in. And of course, as I mentioned before, drive the team behaviors, because your teams will actually make or break whatever you're trying to do with energy management. Next one, please, Sarah. Going on to the next step in the energy plan. Upgrades, expenditure. Do you have money to spend? Where are you going to get your biggest bang for buck? LED lighting, Mike again mentioned, it's absolutely a no-brainer. It's simple and it's effective. It pays, it can be expensive. Prices have fallen significantly, but get it in, get it done, because it pays for itself very quickly. Maintenance, when your maintenance guys come or call them in, have it completed, making the contractor aware that you're looking for energy savings. Because a lot of the times they'll come in, they'll just check that it's working and then go again. It's working within certain parameters, okay. But if you're saying, no, I want this to actually save me energy, I want it to reduce the consumption that we're making, then you can actually talk to them, and hopefully a knowledgeable contractor will work with you on that. And then you can measure the difference they've made once they've been and done a service visit. I was going to bring up some pictures of various poor maintenance activities in sites, but I thought you've probably all seen them, where you've got condensers outside from your refrigeration all clogged up and a contractor has just been. But they've got to keep the equipment, the stuff you don't see when you've got the self-contained chiller cabinets, around the back, they've got to make sure that that is completely clean out the back, because that's where your condenser is. Airflows across your equipment, across the chilled cabinets is very, very important. Overstocked cabinets, waste cold air, then you've got to replace that. And then doors on refrigerated cabinets. We saw on Mike's picture there that the Co-op has gone to a lot of doors on refrigerated cabinet. It's a significant saving in energy consumption. I know the retail trade has been against it for a long time, has been part of that conversation for a very long time, but now that retailers are coming around to do it, we appreciate that it can be a barrier to sale, but I think the savvy shopper is now understanding why it's there. Before you do any of that, work out what your return on the investment is going to be, because you can budget to spend a lot of money and it actually won't pay for itself in the time that you expect it to, because simple LED will pay for itself within months. Control equipment, where poor control equipment is again within months, weeks and months. So you've got to have a look at what that return on the investment is going to be and do the calculations. That's what we're fortunate enough to be able to do with Mike and his team, and try to calculate where the savings are going to be. Next one, please, Sarah. And then basically you go back, review and refine it. You see what's worked, and then you rinse and repeat. You go back, you go and do it again. You never leave it alone. It's not a once and done. It's a continuous virtuous cycle. Once you start it, keep it going. I'm conscious of time at the moment, so I'm just going to whiz on to the next one, Sarah, if I may. Right, this is a recent examples that we did with the Vintners Association event in Ireland. It is in euros, but the premise is still there and the ratios will be very similar. Solar PV, as we understand it, a client with 20-metre space on his roof, capital cost of £4.5 grand, savings nearly £800 a month, 7%, payback 5 years. So those numbers speak for themselves. They have tumbled significantly over recent years. The cost of the equipment is better, the installation teams are quicker, and you get your payback quicker. So it's far more of an investment opportunity, where it was 7 and 8 years quite recently. It's now dropping significantly. Next one, Sarah. Here is a breakdown of 2 sites, just for your example. It's the same but different. It's how these customers wanted their sites broken down. So you can see it's been broken down by cost. That's how they display it to cost, because talking to most customers about kilowatts, it doesn't register as well. When people are talking about pounds, they get it. So in the smaller sectors, we'll do it in this way. So you can see where the cost is. And on the example on the left, you've got the kitchen and the boilers, which are easy wins straight away. You can see that that's the place to target. That's where you're going to get your bang for bucks. Obviously, the savvy restaurant or pub owner there is going to overlay the kitchen costs with the sales that he's made on food, because then he's measuring his kilowatts and cost against the outturn that he's had and the revenue that he's produced. So that's how you break it down basically and work it into percentages. Yes, please, Sarah. Talked about the coolers, and here is for one of the pubs, keg rooms, beer lines, split AC. Basically on the across the top is the technology. The average cost is the next line down, and then the bottom line is the cost saving by lowering it 1 degree C. So it goes through what Mike is saying, and we've got the testaments to see that and what it does. I think we're just about there, Sarah. So as I see it from the perspective of you guys as being in a group, your heating, air conditioning is an area of target. Your refrigeration, obviously the kitchens, cellar and drink cooling, overdoor heaters, which are a massive waste of energy, and then your lighting. You can slice and dice that and put it to any order that you might like. I see it again that the opportunity to have a group buying power, that if you're going to buy energy, and hopefully you're doing that through the co-op as a group, you're going to get best rate tariffs as a group, because you get cumulative discounts. Monitoring and targeting the consumption. You can share your consumption knowledge with each other if you know each other that well, and say, well, I'm doing this, how are you doing? Share that knowledge. If you wanted to get an amount of monitoring and targeting equipment, like those meters, then club together and go get somebody that's going to buy a number of them for you, rather than individual contractors, electricians going out and buying it individually. See if you can get bulk discounts. Share the knowledge, because as Mike said, they do it through the co-op, they share with the different regions. And I can't stress enough behavior change. Engage with your teams, your people, because they will make or break what you do. One day's thoughtlessness by a member of staff can knock out a month's worth of savings. And that is it from me. Thank you very much. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you so much. That was really, really interesting. Thank you. It's been given a lot of food for thought and a lot of practical ideas as well. So brilliant. Thank you. I'm going to stop sharing so I can see everybody. There we go. I can see. Wow, I can see a lot of names anyway. Great. So I'll put forward the questions that we've been asked then. I think first of all, and it's a question that came to my mind immediately, but we talked about reducing the cost, reducing the temperature on the refrigeration by 1 degree. But what do you actually set that temperature to for your drinks? Think drinks chillers and things. When you're reducing it, what is that figure once you've reduced it?
Yeah, it's a good question. And off the top of my head, I can't think what the actual temperature we agreed to, but I don't know if Phil would know from an average standard of what it would be set at from a food store, because I can't think what ours would be off the top of my head.
No, it ranges. It ranges from chilled drinks. We've seen ranges from 8 to 12, depending on whether it is white wine, beers, spirit, and whether it is an accumulated. What's the word I'm looking for? A combined unit, beer, wine, spirit unit. But I think what you've got to get to on that is not to be too worried about it, because each piece of equipment is different. It's all got its different thermal integrity. Some of it will hold its temperature really well, some of it won't. Some of it is in use more than others. What you need to be, and I think it is very much a case of trial and error. Where are you now? Is it chilled? Obviously, it's going to be chilled nicely, but can you go up a degree? See how that goes. And if that's fine and holds, and you've got the thermal integrity, your customers aren't complaining about having warm beer or a warm bottle of wine, then move it up a degree till it's something that you are comfortable with, and within food safety standards, of course.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. Yeah, definitely. Someone has mentioned here, along with those, following on from that question, about coolers. And I've heard this as well, that it takes more energy to turn them off and then back on again than it would be to reduce the temperature when it's turned on. Is that correct? Is that was that an urban myth, or because I'd also heard that it takes more energy to turn them off and on than what could be saved?
The rule of thumb is, if you don't need it, switch it off. That's
Okay.
how easy energy management is. If you don't need it, switch it off. Again, I'll go back to the comment I made about thermal integrity. If something does not hold temperature at all and it just drops out straight away, then you might have to need it on. Most of the equipment that we see these days, it's of good standard. It's got a nice rubber seal around it. It will hold its temperature. I don't hold with that whole, it's cheaper to keep it on than take it off. Because in my experience, and that's over 30 odd years, it's not. But there are different cases for different equipment, is the only caveat I put on that. But generally, rule of thumb, I would say, if you don't need it, switch it off if it's not in use.
Yeah.
And if you start to monitor your data, you can actually see the difference, because you'll see the night load that you're not incurring if you're switching off at night, and then you'll see it come on during the day. And if you go from the normal practice that you have in January, and you change to go into February, when you get your February bill, or when you're managing your consumption, you will see what that difference was.
Yeah, I was gonna say, presumably if you start measuring it, then you can see it in black and white what difference it makes for your business. Brilliant. Another question we've had is around solar panels, and I noticed as well that Mike, you didn't mention that you'd invested in solar, and I just wondered, and also it's been a question asked here, is that something you had considered or not? Or yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really, really good question and good point on the solar side of things. So we have invested in solar. We've got solar on 4 or 5 of our food stores as things 4 stores as things stand at the moment. The reason solar didn't figure in the slides was, at this current moment in time, when we've looked at what the biggest energy efficiency opportunities in the current climate, energy efficiency and payback, LED, new refrigeration, significantly for us stood out as being really significant paybacks, really big savings for us on energy usage. But as one of Phil's slides actually outlined, solar is also becoming a good opportunity again for energy efficiency and payback, and it's actually on our next wave of work. So one thing I mentioned was more optimization. We're also looking more at solar again. We're looking at reviewing our estate again to find out which one of ours could potentially house solar. And as Phil said, I think on his figures, it was around a 5 to 6 year payback. And that's what we're now finding in our initial investigation on solar. And therefore, that is a good opportunity. It's good for an opportunity for energy efficiency, but also good support for obviously renewable energy in general. So for us, yes, we have invested in solar. And the next step for us is potentially to do that further. Now we've pretty much got to the stage I think we can with LED and refrigeration, albeit we've got some more we can do. The next opportunity is around automation, and solar is the other strand for us as well.
Yeah, and I have heard that some shops have had quotes and people come in to consult for them, and I know that the payback period is I've heard a lot lower actually than 5 years. I've heard it more around the 3 year mark. So yes, definitely something for businesses to look into, particularly if you own the premises. In the case of many of our community owned pubs and shops in particular, yeah, it's definitely something that we recommend look into. But obviously it's having that capital available and maybe look into grants to make it.
And if I may, Sarah, it's absolutely, and obviously I'm all for solar, any renewable that we can actually get anywhere. But buyer beware when you're taking the figures from somebody who's selling you something. You might want to get those figures just checked, or have some level of guarantee that comes along with it. And again, as a group, if a number of you thinking about, go out and bulk buy, because you'll get much better deals.
Yeah, something that certainly we're looking at too at Plunkett is where we can possibly facilitate that bulk buying. Definitely. Someone here has asked, how is best practice being shared to smaller retail and hospitality or community centre co-ops, which I'm assuming is things like today's event, but yeah, how are you sharing best practice?
I think from our point of view, again, that is a really good question, because there are certain avenues at the moment that we're involved with when it comes to sharing best practice, but there's probably other avenues that could be tapped into a bit more than we do at the moment. So the main way that we're sharing best practice is, as I said, through the sort of co-op societies and retail societies primarily, because we're able to do that. We're also able to do it through Euro co-ops on an international basis as well. But that's very much within that unit. There's also business forums that share best practice as well. What we're doing here is probably one of the early stages of trying to extend some of this, from our point of view, sharing some of this best practice beyond those obviously forums I've talked about there. Because I do think there is space and opportunity to do this, and this is probably a good starting point from our point of view. I know we are also looking to see from our point of view where we could perhaps share some of this knowledge with some of our charity partners as well, and community partners, albeit where that's relevant. But yeah, I'd say there's an opportunity maybe for more of this type of thing beyond what we do at the moment.
Yeah, okay, brilliant, thank you. Yeah, and also just anecdotally, I was just thinking like when we go out and about and we talk to other community businesses as well, we try to share best practice as well, and we also try to share what we learn from when we're talking to other businesses out and about. Yeah, okay, so moving on to the next.
Sorry, Sarah, the only thing I'll add to that as well, I meant to say during my presentation, is I'm also happy, whether it's to share through yourself, Sarah, some of those energy saving best practice diagrams and site shutdown procedures and tips and that sort of thing. More than happy to share to your network, Sarah, on that stuff, so we can pick up on that.
That'd be great, thank you. Yeah, we'd really love to do that. That'd be really useful. Yeah, someone's a quick question, is the £80 piece of equipment, the monitor that you mentioned, Phil, what's it called, so that people can go and Google it? Oh, you're on mute.
There we go. If you give me a minute, I'll actually go and find the site that's come from, because it was something we did with the vintner, so I'll go and find that before we pack up.
Brilliant, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. And I've noticed here Bill, you've mentioned that you've got a slide that you'd like to share. Is that your own energy? Is that your own survey that you've done?
Yes. Sorry, I've just unmuted myself. I've been monitoring the energy usage in our community store for the last 11 years. And I've created a graph where I've recorded the energy every month used. And I think it'd be useful to show what can be done. If I could share my screen.
Yeah, let me, I'll make you a co-host and then you should be able to, you should be able to share your screen.
Right. Is it coming up now? Can you see it now?
No. Can anyone else? No?
Can you see a chart what looks like a range of mountains?
Sorry, no.
No?
No.
I'm sorry, what should I have done? I've just...
That's okay. While you're loading that, I've just seen I've got a question that's come in. Does Plunkett have any information about grants available? We do have a bit of information, but the best place that we sort of go to is the Energy Savings Trust has got a list of grants that are available. And also it tends to be at the moment more regionalised. So talking to your combined authority or your local authorities, your county councils, your district councils, in some cases parish councils have got grants. I'm not aware of any major national grants at the moment, but certainly talk to them. I visited a shop just the other week and they'd applied to a very local fund that they had, and they'd contacted them and they'd managed to get funding for the replacement of all their lights, for all the LED lighting. And I think they said, well, I can't remember what it was. They've got some very fancy lighting though. So it was several £1,000s, which they got a grant for. And I think those specific costs, those specific projects, they're sometimes a bit easier to get funding for as well. So if you break it down into those smaller pots, rather than trying to apply for everything all in one go, you might be able to go for like the lighting here, or another local charity or local trust for another saving measure somewhere else. So I definitely recommend just keeping in touch with your local trusts and foundations. The ones that are more localized to you might be more useful at the moment, because I'm not aware of a big national scheme. But yeah, sorry, Bill, you've shared your slide with us.
Can you see it now?
I can see it.
Oh, good. This is can everybody else see it? Well, I hope so. Anyway, yes. As I said, I've been recording electricity we've been using in the shop. And this is the figure on a trailing 12-month basis. And from when we opened the shop, the important thing to start with is top left. We replaced open-fronted chillers with a large chiller which had glass fronts, and so we lost we did very well with a good saving of power. In the intervening time, we've had other chillers and equipment added into the shop, and so things slowly increased. At this point, we introduced LED lighting to replace our fluorescent. That cost about £3,000, and again, the figure came right down again. We didn't understand what was happening on this going up here until we found that, in fact, we had a refrigerant leak on our big chiller, and when that was repaired, again, a level spell and then went down. And this last autumn, we had another increase, and I couldn't understand it, but I got the refrigeration engineer in. Initially, I thought it was something to do with the very hot summer, but it went on, and he determined that it was a problem with our chiller and the condensing unit. Got that repaired, and it's now leveled off. That's all I wanted to say is it's very worthwhile to keep a monthly record of your power consumption, because you it can tell you a lot.
Bill, thank you very much for underscoring my points about understanding data. That's brilliant. Absolutely brings it to life. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll stop sharing now.
Thanks, Bill. That's brilliant. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for sharing. It's just great to see it there in black and white. Super. We have reached the end of the questions that have been asked in the chat. Does anyone else have any sort of burning questions or anything they'd like clarification on, or is there anything that comes to mind immediately that you think, oh, you know, we've got our experts here, please do shout. Is there any further questions or anything anyone else is doing or has done which they've found has worked well?
Just while we're there, I have put in the details of that meter in the chat. And I'm not endorsing it, I'm not selling it, I'm not underscoring it. It's just a choice of meter that does a job. There are plenty out there. So it's in the chat for anybody just to put that in Google, and it will come up on a number of outlets, I'm sure.
Brilliant. Thank you, Phil. That's really useful. Yeah. And then certainly I know that my colleague Laura, who's also manager, well, no, sorry, not manager, she's on the committee of a community shop. She's also, I know she's fitted one of these energy monitors, and they've immediately turned off one of their chillers immediately as a result of getting one. Brilliant. Thank you everyone for coming. I think in that case we'll probably, if there aren't any more questions, I feel like I'm at an auction, going, gone, but it's just sort of if there's no more questions, I think we'll probably round it up there. Yeah, Dick has asked if you can share your slide, Bill. Would that be okay?
Yes. Yeah. Do you want me to send an independently file to you? Or?
Yeah, please do. Yeah, I'll drop you an email after, Bill. Thank you. Super. Brilliant, thank you, and thank you so much. So thank you so much to Mike and to Phil for your time and for these brilliant slides. It's been really good, really practical solutions for people to think about. And yeah, just to say then, if you're currently feeling a bit overwhelmed with your energy costs and with your overheads, then please don't hesitate to get in touch with Plunkett. We have specialist advisors across the UK, and we can put you in touch with people that might be able to help you either give you advice around energy or around grant applications to cover those costs. And also we can put you in touch with advisors to look at your profit margins if there are other areas of the business that you want to look at. So please don't hesitate to get in touch. You can drop me an email and we'll also follow through after this email so we can keep in touch as well. So thank you very much. Oh, sorry, one more thing. If you are there, would you mind turning your screen on briefly, your video on, so that we could just take a little screenshot of everybody, because I know Mike wants to share it with his CEO for his newsletter, and I decided to take a little screenshot so that we can see everyone, because it's a bit difficult these days when we're not all in the same.
Hello, I'm interrupting, sorry, but it'd be helpful if for people who've never done this before, you would tell us how to turn it on.
How to do it. Oh, okay, I think on the bottom left of your screen there should be a little button that says share video. There's a little
video.
Probably there's a little mine just says stop video at the moment, but there's a little thing that looks like a video camera.
Oh, there we go.
There you go.
That's got me.
Left of the screen,
Next
to the mute button. Thank you. Brilliant. I'll try print screening. Everyone get ready to smile.
Obviously I'm not alone.
Yeah. Brilliant. We've got another question coming. Hold on, let me take that off the screen and then I'll do a little, everyone smile and wave. Okay. Brilliant. Thank you. There we go. I think that's worked. There we are. Should have done. Right, thank you. And then I've just had one final question that's come in at the very last minute from Glenn, asking whether we've thought about training staff in carbon literacy. Gosh, wow, I don't know. It's not something we've thought of. I think I need to educate myself, so we'll have a look at that. Brilliant. Okay. I'm sure. Cool. Thank you. We'll have a look. Thank you. Finally, if we've got any more questions, please don't hesitate to drop me an email. But otherwise, I think we'll probably leave it there. Thank you. See you all again soon, hopefully. See you. Bye.